今日は特別にゲストをお招きしております。ジェネ・ファップさんというアメリカ人の方で、ご自身がうつを経験されてどう乗り越えたかということについて今回はお話ししていただきます。でこの回で本当にすごく学ぶことがあって、実際にどういう経験だったのかとか、で実際にどういうふうにしたら彼女はうまく今の状態までいけてるのかとか、経験者しかわからないことっていっぱいあると思うんですよね。そういった意味ではものすごくためになる動画になっております。ぜひ最後まで見てください。皆様こんにちは、ナミバーデンです。今日はうつについて一緒に学んでいけたらと思います。彼女との出会いは旦那様ジョシュ・ファップさんを介して知り合いました。ジョシュさんは有名な YouTuber であるザック・キングさんという方がいらっしゃるんですけれども、そのザック・キングさんのプロデューサーをされている方なんですね。その撮影班が1週間10日間ぐらいですかね、日本に滞在していろんなところで撮影をするんですけれども、そこにずっと一緒について回りまして同行させていただきました。そのプロダクションのプロデューサーがそのジョシュさんだったんですよね。でその一同が帰られてからジョシュさんがまだ数日日本に残るっていうので「どうしたんなんですか?」って聞いたら「いや実は僕は結婚して9年目で、その結婚記念日として自分の奥さんを日本に連れてくるんだ」って言って、その撮影が終わった後ですね、数日間かけて初めて日本を旅行するっていうことで奥様を連れてきたんですよね。ジェネさんは日本のね、日本調の素敵な器とか見てみたいっていうことがあったので、いやだったらもう、ね、浅草の近くにかっぱ橋があるからそこ連れてきますよっていうことで、日本に残ってらっしゃる撮影班一同をかっぱ橋までお連れして、でそこで出会ったんですけれども、いやもうその彼女がねとっても優しい方で、女子さんもすごい優しい方で、そのかっぱ橋でショッピングが疲れたから、じゃあ休憩しようかって言って素敵なね、カフェに行ったんですよね。実はその彼女を、そのうつを経験したことがあるっていうので、いや、その経験を教えてくださいっていうふうなことから話が発展して、その時に私すごく学んだことがあったので、お願いします。じゃあ今回、その時では撮影できなかったんですけれども、じゃあ改めてズームセッションでぜひインタビューさせてくださいって言って、この回があるんですね。今回はズームでつながってますので、今からインタビューセッション始めていきたいと思います。Hi, Jenny!
Hi.
Thank you for coming and be on this Zoom call.
I'm so happy to, and I just want to, I don't know, give other people some hope. So anything I can do. I'm 30 years old and I'm a registered dental hygienist. I went back to school. This is my second career choice. I used to be a hairstylist. Josh and I just celebrated our 9-year wedding anniversary in June on the 6th. Thank you. We were a high school sweetheart, so it feels much longer than that. I have a cat. I don't have any kids. So that's a little bit about me. Oh, and I like baking and cooking. Those are my hobbies.
What were some of the symptoms you experienced?
Something was wrong, but I didn't know I was depressed. It's been like a year and a half to 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I think I've, looking back at my life, had kind of bouts of depression, but that was definitely the worst that I'd ever had. And I remember feeling really hopeless. Life in general just felt meaningless. Like there wasn't any meaning to my life, but I was really blessed. I have the best family that loves me. I have a cute apartment. Like, it doesn't make sense, you know what I mean, to be depressed where I was at. Great husband. There really wasn't anything to complain about. I could have easily burst into tears from like a sad song on the radio or a movie. Like, it just felt like I didn't have control over my emotions in that way. Or I felt completely numb and didn't feel anything at all, like a robot. I didn't want to commit suicide, but I just wanted to stop existing if that was a thing. It felt so much easier than to try to survive each day. Just being throughout the day just felt like the worst chore. But I think a big part of it too is my thought process when I was depressed. Like every thought I had was just negative, and it was super self-critical. Like, and I just couldn't stop those thoughts of like, you're an idiot, or you're stupid, or you didn't do that fast enough, or you're not efficient, or you're not as beautiful, or you're not smart, or you'll never. It was just like constantly bombarded with negative thoughts that just wouldn't stop. And I just wanted to like hide from my own brain. If I could like run away from it, I could. That's what I wanted. And then a lot of my depression is tied in with anxiety and worry. I think because I worry so much, it kind of brought on that hopelessness. And I felt a lot of guilt and shame because I was so blessed and I had so many good things. Like, why on earth would I feel this miserable, really? Just a lot of questioning, like, why can't I logically think through this? I was starting to think, like, am I crazy? Or is my personality just like a weak personality? I just can't, I'm not cut out for life. I'm just too weak to handle it. Or like an unhealthy way of coping with that would just be to scroll through my phone. I'm just trying to like have a mental escape into something other than my own head. I was absolutely horrified at the idea that I'd be stuck like this forever. Like,
Some people
I,
experience depression after the big event, like losing a job or divorcing somebody or breaking up with somebody or losing somebody you love, right? So in this case, there was no big major event happen. What do you think?
so like I'd had probably a few big life changes, kind of backtracking. I was a hairstylist for a while and I was really into it. I had put so much into like going into the high-end salons and working under the best people I could, whatever. And when I realized that's not what I wanted to do, I felt like I had wasted like, 5, 6 good prime years of my life. And that was kind of an awful feeling. So that was kind of like step one, just lose your purpose. When I got back into school, it was during COVID, the pandemic. So I
Yes.
was extremely isolated. We did most of our classes online. I only saw people through a screen and then I lived like 4 hours away from my whole family. So really, I only saw Josh. I was like my only person. And then, of course, like you go outside and everyone's got a mask on. So I was extremely isolated. COVID, like, I think that was a big part. And on top of like my old baggage too that hadn't been dealt with.
Got
So I
it.
had an unhealthy way of coping with stress in life, a way of keeping myself safe. I think that was what all this stemmed from was like, okay, I can keep myself safe if I worry about everything because then I'll always be prepared for the worst. You know what I mean? So, but it also means that you never stop worrying. And I felt this need to make perfect decisions because if
Mhm.
I was perfect, nothing could go wrong. I would
I
be
see.
safe. That means I could never make a mistake because then in my
Yes.
head, I'm not safe. And really big things happen all at once. I can't use that way of being perfect to keep myself safe. It really becomes scary because then I have no control and I've lost control of myself. And so I think that pressure of the pandemic, the isolation, and then my means of like worrying about it and trying to be prepared for anything, like I couldn't. There was absolutely no way I could cope like that. And so I just felt completely hopeless. And then even small decisions like what to do, what to eat, what to wear, it felt like I just didn't even have the mental capacity to make a decision. I call it analysis paralysis.
皆さん今の分かりましたか？そのうつになったその要因としてはいくつかあると。例えばそのパンデミックで人と会わなくなったことだったり、仕事をなくしてしまったことだったりっていうのはもちろんあった。だけれども最後に挙げてらしたのが、自分の今までの考え方がそれを引き起こした原因になっていたっていうふうにはっきりとおっしゃってるんですよね。で、どういうことかって言ったら、今までの彼女の考え方とか生き方っていうのは、自分を守るために何か嫌なことが起こって欲しくないからと言って準備したいっていうふうに思うわけですよ。もう完璧に準備したい。だからその起こる前に未来のことを予測する、つまり不安に思うっていうのはそこから来るんですよね。その不安の要素っていうのは未来を予測することですから、その不安要素をいっぱいいっぱい自分の中で考え抜くことで、それを防ぐことができるっていう方法で今までは生きてきた。だけれども、それをすると、例えば大きなことが起こった時、彼女の場合だったらその仕事がなくなったことだったりとか、パンデミックでもうその怖かったですよね、皆さん。だから普通の人でも怖いのに、もう必ず絶対にその全てのシチュエーションをコントロールしなきゃいけないっていう彼女としては、それはもう不可能に近いわけですよ。で、その時にご自身の中で、もう私にはこのシチュエーション、この大きなね、コロナっていうシチュエーションだったりとかっていうのは、もう自分にはお手上げっていうことになっちゃうわけですよ。 で、普段こうやってたった一つのことでもいろいろいっぱい考えちゃうっていう時っていうのは、その大きなことだけではなくって、結局小さな日常のことの決断もできなくなってしまうんですね。なぜならば、自分の脳内のキャパシティがいっぱいいっぱいになってしまうから。だから例えば、お皿洗いをしなきゃいけないとかっていうことでさえも、今までの他のことでいっぱいになっちゃって全てをコントロールしようとしているから、お皿洗いっていうことでさえも難しく感じちゃったり、他のこともだんだんコントロールができなくなってくるっていうことになってしまうんですよね。だからそういった意味でも自分の今までの生き方とか考え方っていうのがやっぱりすごく引き起こした引き金になっていたんだなっていうふうにおっしゃってるんですね。さあここから後半になるんですけれども、彼女がうつの改善に役立った10個の知恵というのを教えていただきます。プロによるその手助けだったり、そういうのを借りながらどうやって自分の考え方を変えていったかっていうことにフォーカスしていきたいと思います。So you finally noticed that, okay, something's wrong. I don't think this is healthy. What treatments did you try?
My cousin was seeing a therapist and she's like, "Oh, she's great. You know, you'd love her." So I think I felt safe because I
Mm.
trusted my cousin. And so I did meet with her. And that was the first time I realized that like not everyone was just anxious all the time. I thought that was just the norm
Mm.
and it wasn't.
Mm.
And that it was kind of a ridiculous amount of worry. So that was like an aha moment for me. I'm like, oh, I really thought everyone was this freaked out all the time. So she helped me start to take those thoughts captive, be like, okay,
Mm.
is this truth? Or,
Mm.
why am I overthinking this? Or putting so much pressure on myself? And it's funny how much of those things go back to like your childhood. And
Yes, it
it's
does.
it's just like, okay, we're gonna figure out how I got messed up when I was 5.
Mm. And sometimes it's not even like a messed up event. Like when I see my clients, no, normally all the thought comes out and it was based on the childhood as well. But then when I go into the childhood, it's not like some parents are super abusive or you are, left alone or abandoned, or it's not like that. Sometimes it's just a little stuff like just one word or the way that they treat you in that moment. So that's kind of funny how we are formed by all those little tiny experiences.
Exactly. And I didn't have an abusive childhood. I didn't grow up in like a terrible home, but it's interesting how like I can see my mom actually dealt with a lot of anxiety, how that kind of
Mhm.
transferred to me and how she never really knew how to deal with it.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of it stemmed even from how her mom treated her, basically was very controlling and a perfectionist. Like everything had to be, I think she said, like, if you can't do something right, it's not worth doing at all. I'm like, whoa,
Mm.
like talk
Wow.
about pressure, you know? So I think that trickled down. I don't think my mom ever purposely tried to instill that in me, but
Yes.
it's hard. That's just instilled in her. Like she's gonna bring that. And I've talked to my sister and even my cousins, and we've all felt that. The first like therapist experience that I had
Mhm.
later down the road, once I was in school for dental hygiene and all that stuff, and I was really at my lowest and like and so I found this place in Long Beach, California that had basically the psychiatrist and therapist all in one. So it's like a health and mindfulness place, which I thought was cool. So that was the first time I like saw a psychiatrist and talked to and like had a whole questionnaire about all my symptoms and everything I was going through. And I can't tell you how validating it was to have a health professional look at everything I had listed and was like, no, you qualify for this disorder, like major depressive.
Mm.
And I was just happy that I wasn't crazy.
Mm.
When I described my anxiety kind of
Mm.
attacks, she's like, they're like miniature panic attacks, basically, that I was
Mm.
having. I just felt seen. It was like, oh my gosh, someone knows what I'm going through. But also come up with a plan for me. It was like with medication and also therapy. She wanted to start me on Zoloft, which is a serotonin reuptake inhibitor. It's not a sedative and it's not addicting. It just helps like that happy signal hormone stuff float in your system longer so that you can stay at a baseline like normal homeostasis where you're not in fight or flight mode all the time, but you actually have a minute to like be joyful. I was nervous to try medication. I don't like to take medication. I don't want really anything in my body, but at this point I literally had nothing to lose. And like, okay, I'll give this a try. And it was really interesting because she's like, okay, we'll start at the lowest dose and then we'll increase. And most people don't see any effects until later I was a rare person and I felt effects right away. I had been, if I could describe the nervous system in my body, just zingy and depressed, for maybe a year and a half. And then all of a sudden, it's like I could see. I was like,
Wow.
oh, ah, and I could like breathe, and then my
Oh,
chest was,
wow.
and I just like lay down on the ground. And I was like, oh, I can hear the birds outside, and I don't have a million thoughts just coming at me that's so negative. I just wanted to cry of happiness and also just mourn the loss of all that time I had wasted being depressed. It was so awful to think like how crappy I felt for so long.
Mhm.
And for a couple of weeks after that, Josh was like looking at me like, "You weren't my wife. Who are you? You got abducted by aliens." Like jokingly, right? I didn't realize that he had been so careful for so long to tiptoe around my feelings. Like he wouldn't even crack a joke, like a poking way, because like, what if he hurt my
Mm,
feelings?
mm, mm.
I think he said something kind of jabby to be funny, and he was like, "Oh no, I said the wrong thing." And like I laughed, and he was just happy, so that was a huge change for me.
This is your second trial of therapist and the professionals. So you are still working with that person, or how many times do you go to the person? Is it in person or is it online?
When I was in school, I had met with the psychiatrist, but their therapists were kind of backlogged. And so I was waiting to get to them. And so I tried this therapy online for a few months called BetterHelp.com. At first, like it was kind of okay, but my therapist would forget sometimes about our appointment or be super late. And I was like, no, I'm out. Like, it just didn't work out. And so I finally got to be with a therapist from the same place that my psychiatrist came, a certified licensed professional, Kaylee, and we really hit it off. And therapy that they focus on is called cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yep.
I think that's kind of the main thing, but I really like her because she really gets to know me, but also gently call me out on things. She gets me to think and like question the way I maybe have been thinking about something in an unhealthy way. I've had therapists where they kind of just ask you questions and you just talk the whole time. But with me and her, I feel like I'm really having a conversation. It's a lot of back and forth. I like metaphors and analogies, so she helps me understand concepts or gives me something to work on for that week, like a little mantra.
So
So
what
she's
was the mantra that she gave you, or is it recommended you to do?
been different ones for different weeks. I think I was afraid to experience any sadness or anxiety because I'm like, oh, I just don't want that. And then she reminded me, you're not a robot. You're supposed to feel everything. So when I started to feel sad and I didn't want to, or anxiety, I'm like, I'm not a robot. This is good. And I would remind myself, like, just feel it. Just feel uncomfortable. It's okay. It's not going to last forever, but you're not a robot. Just something silly like that. It's really retraining your thoughts,
Yes.
like the thought of how athletes train for the Olympics. It's like we got to train our brain too. Therapy is like going to like a master of the mind and then fine tuning everything and learning how to use it to the best of potential and grow. And if it was a muscle, you'd be working out.
In Japan, going to the counselor or even the psychiatrist is not as considered as normal. So it's considered as a shame. So then a lot of people are still struggling and then they don't know what to do. So then they try to figure out by themselves and staying at home and just laying down on the bed and they can't do anything about that. Nowadays, it's kind of opening up, but then they still have a mentality that this is a shameful thing. So if you could just give
Yeah.
some advice to those Japanese people.
Let me ask, do you think anyone would shame a diabetic for needing insulin? Is that no, right? Okay. And that's a hormone, right? And so what if your hormones are imbalanced? Are you going to shame
Mm.
yourself for having like a hormone imbalance, something you can't control in your body? Also, like, can you control your heartbeat? Can you control how you breathe in and out? You can hold it, but you're going to breathe. Your body's meant to keep you alive. I think we are so hard on ourselves to be like, oh, I can control this. I'm like, no, you can't. You can't control your sight or or sneeze. You can't control a sneeze.
I
What makes
can't.
if you want to be the best soccer player there is, you have a coach. Why wouldn't you have a coach for the most important part of your body, your brain? I actually kind of think that's interesting because in what I experienced in Japan, I just saw like the most community driven aspects in life that I don't feel like we have here. Like on the bus, like people stand up for pregnant people without asking, or an old elderly person. Like I don't see any shame in being elderly. It's like, no, you take the seat because you need it. So why don't we have the same thought process of like, hey, your mind might be a little bit disorderly right now. Let's carry you through this. Let's give you the seat so that you can sit down, because it's too hard to stand right now. And we understand that, and we're all going to come around you and help you. So it's like, I don't understand why that's not the same thought process.
I see. So, what is the realistic expectation of how many times? Of course, it depends on the person, of course. But then, how many times you would see the counselor?
So when I was in like really deep depression and just really starting out with that therapist, we met once weekly for a long time. And then I kind of graduated to like every 2 weeks and like for an hour session talking. And then, of course, I was trying to implement what we talked about throughout the week, but just actually talking to her on Zoom was an
Oh,
hour.
so this is not so the first few times was the in person, but then after that, you'll be a follow up with a Zoom or?
I guess it depends on what kind of therapist you have. I feel like it worked out for my school schedule to not have to drive anywhere. And I felt like I could connect just fine. And honestly, I thought it was kind of better because you can be in the comfort of your own home. And there's
I see.
something different about being in your own space. Cause I've done therapy in person too. And it's kind of weird to like be on this like couch just staring at somebody, you know? She knows me now. I'll be in my bathrobe, like we're sipping coffee, like friends. Like it's very chill.
Oh, nice. So it's like a friends now,
Yeah,
professional.
I would hope
Okay.
you'd find somebody that you could build trust with, because if you don't have a relationship, I mean, it takes time, but trust, you're not going to want to accept what that person says, or, you want to feel heard too. So that's why I like to tell people, date your therapist. You don't have to stay with them if you don't like them. Like if it's not working, it's not working. Just bite the bullet and say goodbye.
So, what are some of the things you do now to stay healthy and happy?
I'm starting to feel like maybe too much in my head. Uh, One of the things I talked about with my therapist is like go into a different room. Like physically walking through a door into another space can change your outlook or your physiology. Being outside in nature has been a really big thing for me when I'm in a mood and I can't get out of it. There's something about seeing the trees and the birds and nature, not city. I do journal. I have like a gratitude journal that I bought that has like prompts of like what I'm grateful for, or like what do I want to focus on today, or how do I make my goals come true. Like that kind of stuff is nice that it prompts you, because like if I just look at a blank piece of paper, there's like I got nothing. But if I have little prompts, it's like good. And gratitude has been probably the biggest game changer of like what am I really grateful for? What am I grateful for about myself? Because usually when you're depressed, you loathe yourself. You can't even give yourself a compliment. So if you want a real exercise, try to come up with 5 compliments to yourself that you genuinely believe in. It's really hard. Find somebody else you can help with anything, whether it be something at work, or you just want to like surprise somebody or give them a compliment or notice that they're down and encourage them. When your eyes are off yourself and on somebody else and how you can brighten their day, it comes back tenfold to you. One of the things my therapist told me is that a 30-second hug actually helps and like releases some kind of hormone. So I told Josh he had to give me 30-second hugs, and they really do help. So if that doesn't work, maybe get a weighted blanket.
Yes, I have American husband and I have 2 children who are really grew up in America. I am Japanese. I have such a hard time to give a hug. I have to learn it. Yes, I do. I'm so guilty about this. You know, a couple times my daughter's like, "How come you don't hug? You don't love me?" Like, I do, but we don't do it. But it's just excuses, right? So why not just give it a hug?
Where babies or newborns, there's studies like, the ones that were held a lot versus the ones that, why do we think as adults we're any different? We need some physical touch. Big fan of hugs.
One time this big, you probably know, but I'm not going to say it loud, that this guy, he is a really famous life coach, right? And he talks about, well, the mothers pick up the babies because babies are crying. So that's how you train the babies to cry more. So what you can do is just to leave the baby so that you're not going to pick up. So eventually the baby is not going to cry because you know what I mean? There's a consequences that then like when I heard that, I'm like, I totally disagree with that. you know, just reminds me of it. Just because, just the feeling of the skin to skin connection with the baby and the mother is very important.
At that age too, it's like they don't even have a sense of self yet. Like mom is everything, so it's like you're crying out for your protection. And so if you realize that you cry and no protection ever comes or comfort, of course you're gonna give up, and that sounds awful.
I know, it sounds awful. That's why I'm like, I want to tell people that I disagree with it. When the baby start crying, pick up the baby. That's what I want to say. I wanted to a little bit dig about this journaling things. And then you mentioned at the cafe in Tokyo that was so cute. That's why I wanted to mention here. I want to make sure I want to mention. So the way that you journal was interesting because, when we said, oh yeah, gratitude journal and a journal about anything else, to dump everything else in the head and then keep writing about 2 or 3 pages paper. That's what we learn, right? From a lot of people. But then you did say something about bubbles. So share with us. That was so cute.
For me, with all my negative thoughts, I literally felt like on the piece of paper I had to protect myself. So I just drew like a little bubble cloud shape and I was like, okay, what I get out on this paper, I'm not going to judge it. I'm not going to let that negative thought touch it. I'm just going to let out all my silliness or all my pain, whatever I need to, but like nothing can harm me. And so I would always draw like this silly little bubble cloud thing. And like sometimes I'd really draw in the lines. I'm like, this is thick. Like nothing's getting to this. This is my safe. So yeah, that I don't know if that
So cute. And you mentioned that you do it at home or at the cafe.
times, especially when you're isolated, I just felt like I needed to get out of my normal area. And so going to the coffee shop just felt good to get out. I'm with other people because, we're in the cafe. I just needed that little bit of separation. And then my little safety bubble.
That was really helpful because that's exactly true. Because a lot of times it's not like others are gonna attack you or criticize you. It's yourself, right? It's yourself is the one actually criticizing our own thoughts. So then having a bubble and tell yourself that this is okay, this is safe, it actually probably work. And I am going to use it. It's okay. And I'm gonna call it like a Janae method. That's so cute. And then I'm gonna say, okay, go to a cafe or a coffee shop, get out the house, and having a cute notebook, just like this, and then starts writing, and this is safe. Nobody's gonna criticize, including you. So that's what I'll say.
Yeah.
Perfect. It's so cute.
There's something called laughing yoga. I don't know if you've heard of it. You should YouTube it. It's hysterical. It's this like Indian man, and he basically like stands there and he's like, okay, everyone would go, ha, 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 ha. And like just like random. And if you're having a hard time, get a friend or just do it by yourself and you'll feel so ridiculous. Like just practicing laughter, like really hearty, like ha ha ha's, you'll start to actually laugh. And laughter is good medicine. I don't know. So watching some like comedy or anything that makes you laugh on YouTube is super helpful. But yeah, YouTube laughing yoga, it was very helpful, especially when you just
Check out with this.
uh,
Oh my gosh.
breathing exercises, but not when you're like in your deep like freaking out moments. Just practice them in the morning or at lunch or just a time just to kind of get into the rhythm. There's different ones for all kinds of things, but breathing through your nose and breathing out is more important than breathing in, I found out, and it really does help calm your nervous system. So breathe through your nose. That's super helpful. I think an element of self-care, I know it's really big in the United States, that word self-care, take care of yourself. But for me, when I was super depressed, like, it was hard for me to like brush my hair or put makeup on.
Yes.
So for me, I started to have like a hot bath and I put a candle out and I put on some pretty music and that hot water felt so nice. And like to me, that was a little gift to myself. Plan on that every day because then you have something to look forward to. And so for me, I started to do it in the mornings because I was dreading getting up in the morning. But I'm like, oh, I have my fancy bath I'm looking forward, and I'm going to have my favorite tea. And so it gave me something to look forward to. You could also get a pet. I got a cat and she's fabulous, but she has been such a joy to have a little cuddle buddy. I think there's research too about petting an animal is like very
Mm.
comforting, and you're reminded that you're not alone, and they do something silly on the floor and you laugh. Like it's a good break from life. So
I think that concludes our sessions. Thank you so much for your time.
thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. さあ皆さんいかがでしたでしょうか。私もすっごく学んだことがあるし、特にこの吹き出しで書くとか、そういうところってすごくやりやすいなというふうに思ったんですよね。で楽しいし、しかもすごくいいアイデアがいっぱいある。例えばお風呂にね、入るとかって言っても、キャンドルをね、持って入る。まあ日本ではなかなかね、それ難しいかもしれないんですけど、こういうのアメリカとかでやるとすごくロマンチックになるんですよね。まあ家事に気をつけながらですね、そういうことをやってみたり、である意味そのアロマオイルを使うだとか、やっぱり自分のセルフケアをするっていうこともやっぱり女性らしくてすごく素敵なことだなっていうふうに思いましたね。さあ皆さんどうだったかコメントに感想を書いていただけたら嬉しいと思います。ところで皆さん瞑想しましたか？私は1日10分でもいいから5分でもいいんですよ。瞑想する時間がすごく大事だと思ってます。そういうことで自分の心の中をね、こう頭の中で入れるだけではなくって、そうなると頭ごちゃごちゃごちゃごちゃして、もうそれこそね、鬱っぽくなっちゃったら困るじゃないですか。そういった意味でもちゃんと体も整えていかなきゃいけない。頭だけではなく体も整えていくこと。それができるのが瞑想なんですね。だからぜひこの10分でできる瞑想やってみてください。これは初心者にとってもいいんですけれども、寝ながらできる瞑想なんですね。